everyone, and welcome to Mad Chatter, the monthly Disney podcast where we bring on a special guest to talk about Disney. Today's special guest is a friend of mine, Rob Plays. Rob, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing
great. This is exciting. I feel honored to be in episode 1.
Yeah, this is very exciting. There's so many great Disney content creators out there that when I started my channel, I wanted to do something to interact with various content creators out there.
Yeah, and I know Dan was on deck to be number 1, but I beat you, Dan. So,
Yeah, so Dan is suffering through life at the Polynesian in Disney World right now. I'm sure
him.
He's, struggling, but
yeah,
Dan will probably be on in the future, the near future, but our first guest is Rob. So Rob, why don't you tell everyone about your channel and what you do?
Sure. So I run a YouTube channel called Rob Plays. It kind of started all over the place, but in the last couple of years, it's sort of honed in on being about the history of the Walt Disney Company, and in particular, the Disney parks. So I cover a lot of Walt Disney World in particular, just talking about weird events that happened in the past and, how they manage certain things and how much electricity they use, stuff like that. Anything I basically find interesting when it comes to the origins and the history of the Disney Company, I like to share with people through weekly videos on YouTube.
That's great. So just a PSA, Rob's face cam is still in Florida, you said, right?
It's somewhere in between Florida and New York. I just spent 6 weeks in Florida working, and I shipped all the equipment back to my place, but it shipped later than it was supposed to. So, yeah, right now it's probably on a truck somewhere in the Carolinas, I imagine. Hopefully I'll get it soon.
Yeah, so for the sake of this episode, you'll only be seeing me. I do have a picture of Rob up on screen right now, so you can see what he looks like, but just imagine.
Yeah.
So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was, you just mentioned you were down in Florida for a month, more than that. So what was it like to be, in and around Disney for so long?
It was fantastic. I mean, to clarify, I wasn't in Disney for that whole time. I was staying with family more in the Tampa area, and then I would spend weekends at the parks because my girlfriend had a singing gig over there. And so I was going way more frequently than I normally do, as a New Yorker who only goes, recently, maybe a couple of times a year. I've been lucky to be able to do that, but before that, it was, every other year or so I would go. And so you definitely approach the parks from a different perspective. From the very first time that I got to the parks on that trip, it felt way more relaxed. There's this constant pressure when it's a vacation that you want to get a lot done. You want to get your money's worth, or you want to get your time's worth out of it. And so you want to hit up all the rides, and you want to fill your days as much as possible. But when you have that outlook of, I knew I was going to be there, I think it was 5 times in that 6-week period, I was very relaxed, where it was all right, if we did 1 or 2 rides a day, that's fine. It wasn't a waste of a day. We got to enjoy the atmosphere more. So it's you enjoy it a little bit differently. It was still, a lot of people talk about going frequently and whether the magic goes away, and I don't think it did. I think it just changed. It went from the magic of this really intense vacation to enjoying the little things about the parks that you might not notice when you're rushing around from fast pass to fast pass. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate enough, I get to go to Disney 2 times this year. And I'm going once in June with a bunch of my friends. So that will very much be a vacation in the sense, more of a trip in the sense that we will be trying to get as many rides done as possible, and we're going to be, maximizing our time. But I get to go in March, and we're going for 4 days, 3.5 total, but over the course of 4 days. And I'm excited because the approach we're going to take with this trip is we're going to do the Flower and Garden Festival, and other than that, just kind of enjoy the atmosphere of Walt Disney World and not worry about rides as much, and just kind of enjoy being there. So I'm excited to take that approach. Now, the one other thing I do want to ask you about is that one of the things you did while you were down in Florida is you went on to a Disney cruise. That's correct. So, I've never been on a Disney cruise, but I wanted to hear kind of your thoughts on, because it was your first cruise, right?
First cruise and first Disney cruise.
Yeah, so
hopefully of many.
I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on, how Disney runs their cruises and how much it feels similar to like a type of experience you'd get in the parks, or whether it feels like separate in its own way but still feels Disney. I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. I mean, this is dangerous because I could go on about the cruise for like hours because I'm just like really just totally overwhelmed by how amazing the experience was. So we sailed on the Disney Dream. It was a 3-night Bahama cruise. So we stopped at Nassau and Castaway Cay. And, I've been trying to think of like the short way to sum up how the cruise experience is. And it's everything you love about Disney except no rides and no crowds. And I know for a lot of people, rides are everything when it comes to their love for Disney, but there's so much more to it. It is the service quality and the food quality and the entertainment and the attention to detail and design and just the atmosphere that it kind of provides. And so in many ways, it really did feel like a Disney park experience, despite the fact that there's arguably only one ride, which is the Aqueduct, which is really just a really cool water slide. But everything I've heard from people who have done multiple cruise lines say that Disney's sort of the top tier. So in that regards, it's very similar to the theme park experience where, there are other great ones out there, but this is sort of like the cream of the crop. I mean, the ship detail itself, like, if you find yourself walking around parks, whether it's on trips or you're a local and you like taking in the little design details, the ship is built almost just like that, where you can walk around and we would pick a random deck and walk and just find all these little design details that made for a really beautiful ship that they were constantly improving. Like, the one thing that amazed me is we pulled into port in Nassau and there were a bunch of other cruise ships like Royal Caribbean and Carnival and stuff, and some of them were pretty worse for wear and kind of rusty, and they looked old. And yet every time the Disney Dream pulled into port, there was a team painting it and cleaning it and just keeping it really fresh and clean. On top of that, it was just like Disney food on all scales of the spectrum, whether it's snacks to sort of your quick service food was like very Disney quality, to the fine dining that you had every night. And obviously it's all included with the fare of the cruise itself, but when you're on the cruise it just kind of feels free because you can have as much as you want. And so in that regard, it's almost better than a Disney trip. You don't have to think about how much you're spending on food here or there. You just eat whenever you want. It's almost dangerous in that way. And then, like, lastly, you can tell that Disney's attention to cast member service has carried over to the cruises perfectly. Everybody is just always trying to make your experience as magical as possible, and had not a negative thing to say about the service when we were on the cruise. It really did. It felt like if you took one of the parks, took all the rides out, and then made it so small that everything was 5 minutes away, like at least a 5-minute walk, including your hotel. And that's kind of what the experience was like. If you're looking for something more laid back, I was telling Christine on the TTA podcast that I co-host that, like, my whole life I've been going on Disney trips, but this was the first Disney vacation I've been on where I got to enjoy all the elements of Disney you love, but also sort of sit back and relax and just take it slow, which was very nice. And then you're doing all that in the Bahamas where the weather's amazing and their island is fantastic, all of that. It really was something that we started talking about when our next cruise was going to be before we were even done with the first cruise. It was that fun.
Yeah, well, certainly, like, my family, we love Disney. But every time we're there, we always talk about, like, how it's not relaxing in the slightest. It's a trip, and you have to follow to some extent. You have to follow a schedule and a routine, and you have to line up your fast passes properly. So the idea of a Disney trip that is more of a relaxing vacation obviously sounds really good.
Yeah, and it's totally the sort of thing where if you wanted to, you could make that out of a cruise too. There's enough going on the ship that you could be running from A to B to C the whole time. But I think because people are on a cruise ship, you're surrounded by pools and hot tubs, and you're in the Caribbean, it's just you naturally start to take a little bit slower. And so it kind of gives you that, it's almost like a pass where it's like, yeah, this is a Disney trip, but it's okay to, like, just sit on the deck and chill out for a half hour and just watch the ocean go by. It doesn't feel like you're missing out on something. It feels like that is the something, which is great.
Yeah, so I've been watching Tim Tracker did some cruise vlogs recently too. I'll link those videos down in the description if you want to check them out. But I've been kind of getting a feel for like the type of stuff they have on the cruise, and as I observe and watch it, I really say to myself, this is literally what I would do if I was at Disney World, but there were no rides. I would walk around, I would go to the pools, I'd go to the shops, I would, generally relax, go to the restaurants, try the different, dining things they have to offer, and then at night do whatever the, fireworks, sometimes they have fireworks, or whatever the night activity is. So it really is interesting to like put that into comparison with a Disney World or Disneyland trip.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's the sort of thing where because you're on a ship and it never feels overcrowded, because the number of people who get on at the beginning are the same number of people who are there every single day. So it is everything you love about those elements of Disney, without the massive crowds and shoulder to shoulder, which you go to Disney World the right times a year and you're not going to have that there either. But it feels extra surprising because the ship, for as large as it is much smaller than your average Disney theme park, and yet it never felt like we were too crowded. Even when we were doing night shows and fireworks and stuff, it never felt packed, which adds to that level of relaxation.
That's great. So we're going to move on to our second topic, I guess, for today. Since it's the January episode, I wanted to talk about Disney movies that are coming up in 2019. So Disney is going to make a ton of money in 2019 with big movies like Star Wars, the next Star Wars Episode 9, Avengers Endgame, Frozen 2, Toy Story 4. These are all like big movies. So I kind of wanted to play, I guess, a little bit of a game type thing. You could call it over-under, I guess. I'm going to give you the box office revenue of the previous movies to many of the movies coming, and I want to hear whether you think the box office numbers will be over that or under that. So
I love this idea. Okay, this is cool.
So we'll start with, I guess we'll go chronologically with Avengers Endgame. So Avengers Infinity War made $2.048 billion in the box office. So do you think that Endgame will make over or under $2 billion?
Oh man, this is the one where you said that and I was like, this is going to be the tough one, because on one hand it's the follow-up to part one. So I feel like I'll say this. My guess is under, but very slightly, because my thought process is, I think there might have been, while it might not have been a lot of people, I bet there were some people who saw Infinity War and didn't like how it was, and so they're not going to see part two. So I think just on that end, it's gonna go down maybe a little bit.
But wouldn't you think that the people who didn't like Infinity War would want to see Endgame, because supposedly Endgame to an extent will undo Infinity War, like supposedly.
Maybe you know what? That's real. This is the toughest one, because I can almost see it being almost on par with it as well. I wonder if it's because I feel like Infinity War was such an event film, and by having another big event film just a year later, it might not feel as special. But I don't know. That's a tough one. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with slightly under.
So the next one, I guess, chronologically would be Toy Story 4. So Toy Story 3, which we all thought was the end of the Toy Story movie series, made $1.067 billion. So do you think Toy Story 4 will make more or less, granted that it is a slightly bigger chunk later than Endgame is to Infinity War?
I think this one is also going to do less, and I think the main reason being that, like you said, so many people thought 3 was the end. Also, we don't have we have those 2 teaser trailers, so I don't know. This could all change when the marketing comes out, but I I think it'll be a little bit less, but I'm assuming if they do like a 5 and a 6, that's where it's going to sort of pick up in the box office. It's almost like resetting the trilogy a little bit.
Yep. And then we're gonna do 2 more. This one is kind of an unknown because we have no details yet on it other than one leaked image. Frozen 2, which a lot of people aren't talking about as a 2019 movie because it's so far away. It's coming out on November 22nd. But Frozen made $1.276 billion, which is the highest grossing animated movie ever. So, do you think that Frozen 2, because so many people saw Frozen the original, would go see the second one?
I'm starting to sound real pessimistic here. I realize now. I think it's less as well, but this is why. I think it's going to do really, really well. It might even break $1 billion, but I think Frozen, part of what made Frozen the highest grossing animated film of all time was it really came out at this very lucky point in time where there was no other competition in the box office for like months, and it just was, it was also a really great film, but I think outside factors played largely into how well it did. And so unless all of those outside factors just happen to happen again with Frozen 2, then I think it'll do slightly less, but then again it'll be offset by all the fans from Frozen 1 who want to go see it. So I don't know. Yeah, I think it'll be less.
See, this one I agree with. I agree with this one. I don't think it'll do well. For an animated movie, $1.2 billion is a lot of money. So I agree with you on that. All right. The last one I want to talk about is Star Wars Episode 9. So The Last Jedi, which was the previous movie, made $1.3 billion. And a lot of people didn't like that movie. It got very mixed reviews. I won't go into spoilers on the off chance that you haven't seen it, but basically a lot of people didn't agree with how the plot turned out. So do you think that knowing this, people will not go to the episode 9, or do you think that they'll still go to see the conclusion of this trilogy?
I think it'll do better. I think it's partially, I think you're going to get a lot of people who will still go see it to get the conclusion of the trilogy. I also think with the growth of programs like Movie Pass or AMC A-List, you've got more people like myself. I'm one of the people who've done this, who view movie going as like less of an investment because it's just a couple of bucks for a movie as opposed to more. But on top of that, I think just J.J. Abrams, he's good at making fun adventure movies, and I think Disney, for whatever anybody thinks about the last film, I think they're good at marketing their films and the Star Wars franchise. And so I do see a lot of people turning up for what is, according to Disney, going to be the last entry in the Skywalker, saga. Like, they'll do more Star Wars after this, but this is it. 9 is supposed to be the last one. So I think that's going to turn a lot of people onto seeing it. So I think it is going to do better.
Okay. I agree. I think that Disney is very good at marketing. Obviously, they've got this down to a science. And I think to an extent, they will make the majority of people forget what they didn't like about The Last Jedi. I think they'll do a good job at marketing this movie, and I ultimately think that it will perform the best out of the 3 movies. Even better than The Force Awakens, I think, because people will want to see how the story ends. Alright, so they're all movies we're looking forward to. We've got other movies coming out, like the Lion King live-action remake, as well as the live-action remakes of Aladdin and Dumbo, even though technically they're not live-action, they're CGI, but they're considered that. So
Lion King's going to bring in that's going to be the moneymaker for Disney. That I bet is going to break $2 billion easy. Yeah,
I was trying to do the over-under for that, but I couldn't find accurate numbers for the original movie with inflation and all that, so we just skipped it. But what is your most anticipated movie of 2019? For most people, it's going to be probably either Endgame or, sci-fi. It's tough. There's so many good movies. Well, we hope they're good. There's so many movies coming out that everyone's looking forward to. So I just wanted to hear what you're looking forward to the most.
So I mean, like, the Star Wars fan in me says Episode 9, just because this is a saga I've grown up with, and I happen to like all of the entries in them, and so I kind of want to see where it goes. But just for a change of pace, I'm also really, really looking forward to the Jungle Cruise, because I think that's going to be a very interesting film that we can't really predict how it's going to do or what it's even going to be like, because I mean, the last time we did ride-based films was Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion, and so we had a really great example and then a really poor example. So where Jungle Cruise is going to fall is very much up in the air. And then on top of that, what I'm really interested in is, if that does well, does that mean Disney's going to lean into that more? Are we going to get a Big Thunder movie, or movies based on other attractions that I think could be really fun? So I'm really excited to see just how that turns out.
I was just checking this, and I am also very much looking forward to the Jungle Cruise movie, but that was actually pushed back to July of 2020, which is the reason
was it?
It's not on my list. And I was very upset about that, but I also like it to an extent because that means that they're putting full effort into it. But yeah, we're not getting that for another year and a half or so.
Wow. All right. Well, never mind. So I guess Star Wars for me. It is good to hear that they're pushing it back, though, rather than, a lot of that, I think the media picks up as bad news. They go, oh, something must be wrong. Why are they pushing it back? But consider how many studios would otherwise cut their losses and just push out a poor movie, which is why whenever I hear news of like a delay, doesn't always mean it's going to be a good sign, but at least it shows they're trying and not trying to just, toss out a stinker.
Yeah, well, for me, growing up, Star Wars fan. That's what I loved, all my toys, Star Wars. And I enjoyed The Force Awakens, and I, to an extent, enjoyed The Last Jedi. But the plot details and intricacy of the Avengers, universe has, fascinated me for the last couple of years. And there's all these theories about what's going to happen in Endgame, and it's such an unknown. So for me, that's probably my most anticipated movie, just because I loved Infinity War so much, and I've loved how that whole series has developed over the last 10 years. So I'm excited to see how this chapter in the Marvel Cinematic Universe story will come to a close. But speaking of Marvel, see that transition there?
That was a good one.
Yeah. They just released the, trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home, and it pretty much did not mention Endgame or Infinity War at all. And according to sources at Marvel, this takes place after Endgame. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on the trailer, the reveal of the villain, and all that, and what you think of, the trailer, I guess.
So it's a really interesting moment in the film industry, because this is when things get really meta, because when Infinity War came out, we knew there was another Spider-Man being made. When we saw just how good Black Panther performed, we knew, okay, there's definitely going to be another Black Panther. And so, spoiler alert, events that happen in the Infinity War, you kind of in the back of your mind know, okay, something's going to happen. And so in a weird way, Infinity War was the first Marvel film that, to me at least, felt like a comic book movie, where I'm like, all right, there's going to be some late game twist or turn that reverses a lot of major decisions that happen in this movie. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but to bring it back to Spider-Man, it's kind of made me go okay, I'm easy to accept that this takes place afterwards. Something's going to happen that sort of resolves everything, and I'm cool with that. I'm just really glad that with the reveal of Mysterio, they're taking these two interesting turns. One, they're doing the comic book version of his suit with the big fishbowl helmet, which you'd think in Hollywood today they try and do something a little bit more realistic and grounded, and I'm glad they didn't, because I don't know, it just seems fitting for Spider-Man. And then also I like that they're positioning him almost as everyone thinks he's a good guy, and we all know, it's sort of like that dramatic irony. We all know the truth. We know Mysterio's not really a good guy, but they don't, and so there's a little bit of tension there. So I'm really excited for it, and I think as long as Marvel's got their hands in it to make sure it's not just a Sony film, then I have high hopes for it. I'm in Spider-Man mode, because I loved Into the Spider-Verse so much, and I loved the PlayStation 4 game so much. So this past year has been a big year for Spider-Man, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah, well, back to Infinity War, like you were saying, we all knew there was going to be another Spider-Man movie. And similar with Black Panther, we assumed that there would be another one. So when I was watching the end of that movie, I was expecting something to happen in that movie that would, not like when the characters started fading, I almost like looked at my watch and was like, wait, is there another half hour to this movie? Like how are I was expecting, like I myself was shocked that they were gone, even though I knew that ultimately it would be, changed or whatever. Probably, we assume so. Granted that there's a trailer for a SpiderMan movie coming out a couple months after Endgame. So yeah, and then the Into the Spider-Verse, still haven't seen it. I know I'm behind on that one, but the holidays kind of caught me off my guard. I haven't seen any of the movies that I wanted to see, so I'm going to be spending a lot of time at my theater in the next couple of weeks. And then the Spider-Man PS4 game, I have yet to start it because I want to give it its proper time. And
that's smart, yeah.
I don't want to start to play it and then have to do something else. So I will ultimately get to that, and I'm sure I will enjoy it because it looks phenomenal.
I'll say this, and what makes it a great year for Spider-Man, I finished the PS4 game and went, this was the best Spider-Man story I've ever seen. And then months later saw Into the Spider-Verse and went, nope, this is the best Spider-Man story I've ever seen. And then also, after seeing it a second time, went, this is the best superhero movie I've ever seen.
Wow.
So it's like, I don't want to build it up too much, but it really did become my favorite very quickly. And it's one of those movies, I rarely think this way, but it's one of those movies where I'm like, the second it comes out on Blu-ray, I'm going to pick it up just to see it again. And also because I want to support that film so much. It was almost surprising that Sony made this, because normally their past Spider-Mans ever since Spider-Man 3 onward have kind of been duds. Homecoming was good, but I kind of attribute that to, I imagine, Marvel's involvement. But this was really, really good.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. So, the last thing I kind of want to talk about, and I don't even know, I didn't run this by you before when we did the show notes before. So obviously you're a big video games person. I've watched your videos, your old videos. I watched some of your Disney Minecraft mod videos. And I've watched some of your other games you started with. So you're obviously a big video game person, as am I. Before we recorded this, I finished 2 hours of yelling at my computer playing Cuphead. So
nice.
That video will be up in a couple days as well. I actually don't know when this is going up, but it'll be up sometime in and around when I post this. So have you ever played Kingdom Hearts or any of the Kingdom Hearts games?
I tried to get into the first one back when I was doing Let's Plays, and this was before I wasn't a big JRPG fan, so even though I was enjoying the Disney element of it, the JRPG part of it was kind of turning me off, so I didn't get very far into the first one. I have been sort of watching along with 3, and I'm interested enough that I kind of want to give the whole series a try again. I think I just need to accept that I'm not going to understand the story one bit, because from all I can tell, none of it makes any sense. But every time I see a clip of the Main Street Electrical Parade or just something from the parks in video game form, it's like, all right, I'm in. I want to try this out. So I need to just fight through the parts that I didn't like as much and get through it.
Yeah, well, I haven't played it either, so I was kind of hoping that you had, so we could talk about it a bit. But for those wondering, it releases on January 25th for PS4, Xbox One. It is the 12th installment of the Kingdom Hearts series. Even though it's Kingdom Hearts 3, it's a sequel to Kingdom Hearts 2. So, yes, similar to you, it looks like a good game. Kind of confusing to me. I don't know anything about it, about how, Disney characters tie in with, I think, Sora.
Yeah, I've been told by people who played all of the games that even if you play all of them, it still doesn't make very much sense. It is very much a JRPG in that regard, and that it's a very long, complicated, convoluted plot. But almost to an extent where people have been like, but it's okay. So just play it and enjoy it for what it is. Don't try and wrap your mind around the story. And I'm imagining with this gap between 2 and 3, that whatever story they introduce, there must be some sort of either recap or I can't imagine this is going to be one of those games where people go, you have to play the first two, because I feel like that would be really bad for sales if to make a game like that right now.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna wait and see, let some other people play it, and then ask if they think I could play it and have any understanding of anything that's going on. Yeah, the last Disney-related video game I played was Epic Mickey, which had to be like a while ago. So like part of me wants to give it a shot. I mean, I enjoyed Epic Mickey for what it was, but also I don't want to get too into a game that I don't understand when I could be playing SpiderMan or Red Dead 2. So, I'll have to see.
Yeah, and I will say this, I used to be the type of video gamer where I was getting games on launch day, I was just like powering through them, I was keeping up with all the games, and in the last year or two, as I've been focusing more on the channel, I've become more of a relaxed gamer. Like, I only just finished Red Dead actually last night, so, that came out months ago, and I kind of want to go back and do some of the Spider-Man DLC, and taking it slower is really nice, because like I didn't even know Kingdom Hearts 3 came out so soon, so that's like a nice little gift to know, like, oh, it's gonna be out in like a week, and I probably will still be playing something else, and then you let other people sort of sort through what's good and bad, and then you just play what gets through that filter, so to speak.
All right, so before we wrap things up, I just want to ask you kind of a general question as far as Disney parks go, because I feel like we didn't talk about that at all. I looked through, there wasn't that much news to talk about. I felt like, in January it'd be better to look at the movies and see what's coming as far as movies go this year. But as far as the parks go, we do have Galaxy's Edge opens this year. We have Mickey and Minnie Runaway Railway, the gondola system, the Skyliner. So what are you looking forward to most coming in 2019 at the parks?
Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. I mean, I feel like the no-brainer would be Galaxy's Edge, but part of me thinks I'm not going to get to enjoy it this year because it's going to be so packed and crazy. So I'm almost, in my mind, trying to write it off as a 2020 thing. But I'm a very, very big fan of the new Mickey Mouse shorts. I shouldn't even call them new. They've been around for years now. But the new era of Mickey Mouse shorts. And so the thought of not only Mickey and Minnie getting a ride, which is really cool, but getting it themed around those shorts I'm like super excited for. So like that's one that I want to get to the parks this year so that I can give it a ride. Yeah,
so if you didn't know, any of my audience or Rob, I have written a few videos for Disney Dan, and one of the ones that I wrote that isn't actually released yet was the evolution of Mickey Mouse cartoons. And the best part about writing that video is that I got to watch hours of Mickey Mouse cartoons. I literally would stay up till midnight or 1 in the morning watching playlists of Mickey Mouse cartoons. And I 100% agree that the modern day cartoons, I love them, they're great, because their art style ties back to the originals in a way, in kind of a strange hidden way, but in their own respect, they're modern and fresh, and they're the perfect length. So yeah, I'm very excited that the mouse that started it all is getting a ride in the parks. I felt that, as the poster, child per se for the Disney parks, I felt like he was, Mickey and Minnie were both deserving of their own true ride at the parks.
Totally.
So on the day of recording, so we're pretty much wrapping it up now, but on the day of recording, it is Martin Luther King Day in America, which is a day of service, and just as kind of a nod to that, I am putting the link down to Give Kids the World's donate page in the description of the video. As a sign of service on this day, I encourage anyone who is able to go donate a little bit to Give Kids the World, which is such a great charity. And then Rob, why don't you just kind of let everyone know what you've got coming up on your channel and plug any social media that you want.
Sure. So you can find me on YouTube under Rob Plays, and you can find me on Twitter at Rob Plays as well. And I'm actually coming off of the cruise and just being infatuated with the cruise. I'm working on a video that is basically how much it would cost to live on a Disney cruise ship for an entire year. It's kind of an extension of a video I did a few years ago about how much it would cost to live in Disney World for a year. And the number is super, super high, but I'm hoping to have that out this Wednesday. And then beyond that, who knows? I'll just sort of take it week by week.
That's great. So that's it. This show is kind of still under development. I love talking to people that have similar interests as me, in regards to theme parks. So thank you again, Rob, for coming on to the show. But if you guys have any suggestions on what you want to see, on this show, if you want it to, I'm not making any commitments, but if you wanted it to increase to more than just monthly, if you want to see 2 a month, something to that respect. The hardest part would be getting guests. But, yeah, and then I don't have any, question, answer, Q&A type thing, because it's, every month. But if you wanted to see something like that, let me know. I'm really open to whatever you guys want to see. And that's pretty much it. So, thank you for watching if you made it this far in the video. If you enjoyed, and subscribe, all that stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video.